Good afternoon. Today's May 4th, and today I'll continue to be talking about the coronavirus. So the first piece of news that I'd like to talk about is that pediatricians are scared for the children while they're not the focus of the pandemic. However, the pediatricians are worried for the children and families for their future. So obviously the impact of this pandemic is huge, and you might say that older population is being hit the hardest, but families are taking a large strain on as a result, so are their children. So some of the top specific worries that come up again and again from those whose business is children and in children's health, and the first reason is missing immunizations and falling immunization rates. The ability to protect children from the diseases with these immune vaccines is extremely vital, and currently, because of the pandemic, fewer and fewer vaccinations are done, and this is an extremely large problem, because if they don't receive the vaccines on time, they may develop life-threatening diseases to the children, and vaccinations are very important to help save the children's lives, even though they may have potential side effects. So the second thing that is worrying pediatricians is emotional trauma, anxiety, and post-traumatic stress disorder. So that even younger children, such as 4 and 5-year-olds, express anxiety about the virus, as we are all living in an anxious world right now. And I think this does include perhaps losing their parents, losing their families. This does create an emotional trauma on children, and this is another problem why this is so worrying. The third thing that might be worrying pediatricians is the developmental impacts of the pandemic, especially of social distancing. So personally, me and my younger brother, we realized that some developmental behavior is that now, and every time we see somebody, such as walking out on the street, my brother would just immediately go to the other side of the road and be like, oh, someone's coming. And this kind of thing is that I feel like when the pandemic is over, this does leave an impact on younger children, especially since their minds are so vulnerable to change. And middle school kids and adolescents will have also consumed astronomical volumes of online media, such as myself, because we are honestly just so bored that we spend all the time online. The next thing that is worrisome to pediatricians is poverty. So we're in a pandemic that obviously is going to increase poverty, to hit the hardest in poor and minority communities because of the loss of jobs, loss of families, and with this, child poverty is just going to rise, and obviously this leads children to be impoverished, and poverty could often lead to death. The next thing that is also happening is school loss and educational disparities. So obviously, learning online is just not really easy, as I've experienced, and it's obviously nothing compared to actual learning in school. And many students do lack internet service or devices, which make keeping up with school even harder. I think some may just give up with it. So the second thing that I like to talk about is that California. This is right now is a season where California perform controlled burns to burn forest lands in the pandemic. To burn the fires to avoid large forest fires in the fall. So obviously, if we don't burn these forests, then we could lead to wildfires in California, which could be devastating. As last year, the fire in Paradise in Northern California, it was honestly so bad that I have experienced for myself, where the wildfires just absolutely keep on going, and it really does damage lungs. And living in California, in Southern California almost, I have seen where like the skies are almost black, and the air quality is just absolutely damaging. However, we do face a problem that if we do perform these controlled burns, then it is releasing smoke into the air, which will be risky for patients with coronavirus. So smoke is often lethal to COVID-19 victims because obviously the coronavirus is a respiratory disease, and if we perform these burns, it is very likely that one, some people staying at home, their conditions will worsen, and this could obviously lead to death. And another thing is that they could also damage lungs before they even contract the virus, and when they contract the virus, it's just going to be worse. So I personally think that this is a really hard decision because either way, they all could lead to bloodshed and death. And I hope that we can find some middle ground where perhaps we burn some of the forest and to lessen or perform the burns at where there's almost no wind, and control them to as small as possible, because I am more to the controlled burn side, as I have personally experienced wildfires in California, and they are as bad as it is shown on the news, or even worse.